So, my name is Haruyo Miyagawa. I was born in Japan in a town called Hiratsuka, which is about an hour and a half by train from Tokyo. My father was a physicist, and he felt he couldn't do the sort of research he wanted to do in a Japan still recovering from the war. So we left for the United States when I was 7, and we first went to Durham, North Carolina, where my father did postdoc at Duke. Then he was offered a position at the University of Alabama. So that's how we ended up in Tuscaloosa in 1965, 3 years after George Wallace stood in the schoolhouse door at the university in a symbolic attempt to stop the desegregation of schools. So in Alabama, there were very few people who looked like me, and I never felt that I belonged. In elementary school, I was the only Asian student. Um, in junior high and high school, there were two other students who were half Asian and half white. After graduating from the University of Alabama, I went to Japan and stayed there for 9 years, mostly in Tokyo. I experienced a really stimulating environment. I mean, there were so many museums and galleries, ancient temples, modern technology, and beautiful scenery. And I became fascinated by Japanese art and culture, especially pottery. After 9 years, I decided to come back to the United States and initially went back to Tuscaloosa, where my parents still lived, in order to decompress. Um, I had no intention of staying in Alabama or the South again, but I decided to get a library degree at Alabama and was hired as a librarian at the Birmingham Public Library, where I worked for 27 years. So I have grown fond of Birmingham despite its shortcomings. It's come a long way since the dark days of the civil rights struggles, and it always feels to me like it's on the cusp of greater things. Kind of like that annoying sibling that has so much potential but is always disappointing you. I retired from the library in 2016 and started making art more intentionally. And I had always done arts and crafts, but it wasn't until after retirement that I had the time and mental and emotional space to pursue art. Ah, well, net blending or navigating. Um, hmm. Well, now in my artwork, I do often blend Japanese and Southern cultural influences. So, well, for example, in the work, Where Are You From? No, Where Are You Really From? Which is in the current exhibit at the um, Constructions Contemporary Fiber at the Wiregrass Museum of Art in Dothan, Alabama. I definitely blend Japanese and Southern influences. So, for, so first of all, these questions, the where are you from, know where you're really from, really make me cringe inside whenever I'm asked, because that it implies, well, you don't look like you belong here. And I usually answer the first question with, I grew up in Tuscaloosa, because that's where I spent most of my formative years. And then the interrogator gives me an annoyed look, then follows up with the even more dreaded, no, where are you really from? And I sigh inwardly and say, I was born in Japan, just to get the interrogation over with. Then the interrogator gives a satisfied smile that says, see, I knew you weren't from around here. But really, I don't know how to adequately answer that question because, born in Japan, grew up in Alabama, went back to Japan for close to a decade, then back to Alabama after vowing to never live in the South again. So I don't really feel fully at home in either place. So So the base of the work, Where Are You From, is the sleeve of a used kimono that I bought at a flea market in Japan. And I transferred the photo of my parents' wedding and a photo of me dressed up for celebration onto muslin, which is lightweight cotton. And then I cut them out and I sewed the photo transfers onto the kimono, along with various other items that evoke Japan and Alabama. And so even if the subject matter of a work is entirely Alabama, I often incorporate Japanese influences. Like, for example, in the work Cahaba Indigo 2, I depicted a scene of the Cahaba River, but elements in the work are inspired by Japanese kimono design. Concepts of home and displacement are central to my work. The other work that's in the current exhibit at the Wiregrass Museum is #1 in the series, Migration Patterns. And I incorporate the same two photos I used in Where Are You From? So that's my parents' wedding photo and a childhood photo of me dressed up for a festival. And I transfer the photos onto heavier paper, and I glued pieces of Japanese decorative paper to a linen background and hand embroidered several lines to evoke air currents or the flight pattern of a bird. And I attached an origami crane in the midst of the embroidered lines. So far, there are 4 works in the Migration Pattern series, and they all incorporate similar concepts. Well, let's see. So in the migration patterns work that's at the Wiregrass Museum, I did use some patterned Japanese paper that show pattern of waves, and also, of course, the embroidered lines that evoke the birds' migration. So I think, of course, there's a big ocean between the United States and Japan, and water, I guess, evokes travel, migration, journeys. So I think all 4 do have some reference to water. Yes. Well, let's see. So, for example, to elaborate further on the piece, Where Are You From? Where are you really from? The photo transfers of my parents' wedding and of me dressed up for a festival show the Japan side of my personal history, as do the fact that the base of the work is a kimono, and there's an amulet, a small purple amulet for safekeeping from the Shinto shrine near my childhood home in Hiratsuka. Those are the items that symbolize Japan. And the items that symbolize Alabama are the Cahaba lilies, which I made from vintage handkerchief that I bought at a local antique store. And the Cahaba lilies, to me, are really emblematic of Alabama because they grow nowhere else on earth. And also, I used a cutout of from a beer can from the Good People Brewing Hazy Snake IPA, and it shows a snake. And well, Good People was the first craft brewery to open in Birmingham, and snake handling is a religious practice associated with the rural South. And then I affixed a fossil shell from the Cahaba River onto the beer can cutout. And so I've done similar things in my other works that incorporate items emblematic of Japan and Alabama. textiles play a vital role in all cultures and are closely interwoven into many aspects of life. Japan has a long storied textile tradition, and I use Japanese textiles often in my work. So, in the two works currently on exhibit at Wiregrass Museum, so that's Where Are You From? And the other work, Migration Patterns, um, showed this reference to this tie to textiles. So the photo transfers of my parents' wedding and the photo of me show my mother and me wearing festive kimonos. And in the Where Are You From? The main base is a kimono. And so, and in another example, there's a work titled Mitsuko, which is an ofrenda in honor of my mother. And ofrenda is a Spanish term for an altar for a departed loved one. And I used a scrap of material from my mother's kimono. And another work, Kahaba Indigo, the base is an indigo dyed fabric square called furoshiki, which is still commonly used in Japan to wrap and to tote items. And this particular furoshiki is from the neighborhood shoe store that my maternal grandparents ran, and businesses often gave furoshiki as gifts to loyal customers. And I found this furoshiki when I was cleaning out my parents' home after the death of my father. And I printed a linoleum block print of kahaba lilies onto cotton fabric, and then I sewed it onto the furoshiki. So yes, there is a profound language in textiles that helps me to tell my stories.